Large mammals cannot stand on vertical surfaces. Physics doesn't allow it. On a true 90-degree wall, there is no ground beneath you, only gravity pulling straight down. And guess what? They do. At nearly 13,000 feet above sea level, goats walk across vertical limestone walls, not a slope disguised by camera angle, not deep cracks carved into the rock. Smooth hooves, hard stone, empty air below. This isn't just climbing, it's a physics problem. How does an animal with hooves stand on a surface your hands can barely grip without collapsing into the abyss? But the bigger mystery is why they do it. Let's start with the obvious. A 90-degree wall should mean zero margin for error. One miscalculated step equals a fatal drop. And goats do slip sometimes. That's the part no one shows you. Young ibex fall. Some don't survive. The risk is real. So this is not invincibility. It is calculated exposure. But here's where things get strange. When an ibex steps onto a vertical limestone face, its hoof doesn't behave like a typical hoof. It splits. Ibex hooves are cloven, meaning two independent toes. Around the edge is a rigid keratin rim. Inside is a soft elastic pad. When pressure is applied, that inner pad deforms and molds into microscopic grooves in the rock. In other words, it increases surface contact. And almost nobody talks about this part. The outer rim grips edges. The inner pad increases friction. The hoof can even flex slightly outward, adapting mid-step. That means each placement adjusts in real time. But hooves alone cannot defeat gravity. So look at the legs. Ibex ankles rotate more freely than most hoofed animals. Their joints absorb shock vertically and laterally. That allows them to land slightly off balance and recover instantly. Still, something else is happening. Their center of mass sits lower than you think. Their bodies are compact and muscular. Less height means less rotational leverage when tipping backward. Less torque, less backward pull, less chance of flipping off a 90-degree wall. But this is where it gets more interesting. Balance isn't just mechanical, it's neurological. Inside the inner ear sits the vestibular system. In mountain ungulates like the alpine ibex, this system is exceptionally sensitive to angular tilt. That means their brains detect slope changes faster than ours. They correct instability before you would even feel it. But even with all of this, friction, rotation, balance, gravity is still there, and gravity never takes a break. So why risk vertical death daily? Because climbing the wall is not the objective, it's the access point, and what they access is more valuable than safety. Most people assume these goats climb vertical walls to escape predators, and that sounds logical. Wolves struggle on cliffs, lynx hesitated, even humans cannot follow. But here's the flaw in that theory. Golden eagles hunt at altitude, and they are powerful enough to lift young ibex from exposed ledges. So going higher doesn't remove danger, it shifts it, which means the reward must outweigh the risk. Now think about altitude. At 13,000 feet, oxygen levels drop significantly. The body must work harder. Every step burns more energy. Every climb costs calories. So why choose the most energy-expensive terrain possible? Because something exists on those vertical limestone walls that does not exist in the valley. And this is where the footage becomes revealing. If you watch closely, you'll notice something subtle. They stop. They press their mouths to the rock. They lick. Not grass, not moss, but rock. So why would an animal risk a vertical cliff to lick stone? Because those limestone walls are not just rock. They are mineral reservoirs. But before we reveal which mineral changes everything, there's another piece you need to understand. Ibex goats are built for altitude in ways most animals are not. Their hemoglobin has a high oxygen-binding affinity, allowing more efficient oxygen transport in thin air. Their lung capacity relative to body mass is greater than domestic goats. Their red blood cell concentration increases seasonally. That means they can function where others fatigue. And that creates a competitive advantage. Few animals can safely operate on vertical mineral-rich cliffs at extreme altitude, which means less competition, less crowding, less resource depletion. Now the question becomes unavoidable. What resource is so essential that it justifies a daily negotiation with gravity? And once you understand that, the 90-degree wall stops being madness. It becomes a strategy. The reason these goats climb vertical limestone walls is sodium. In alpine valleys, sodium is scarce. Rainwater constantly washes it out of the soil. Plants growing there contain only trace amounts. And herbivores that remain below often develop mineral deficiencies over time. Sodium is not optional. It regulates nerve impulses. It controls muscle contraction. It maintains hydration balance at the cellular level. Without enough sodium, reaction speed slows. Coordination weakens. Muscles fatigue faster. And for an animal walking on a 90-degree vertical wall, coordination is the difference between life and death. Now look back at that cliff. Every step requires millimeter precision. Every landing demands perfect muscle firing. If nerve signals are delayed even slightly, the margin for error disappears. So sodium is not just nutrition, it is survival engineering. Limestone cliffs accumulate mineral salts as groundwater seeps through porous rock and evaporates at the surface. Over time, sodium and calcium concentrate into small crystalline patches, invisible from far away, essential up close. Those patches become natural salt licks, and ibex goats depend on them. Females require increased calcium and sodium during pregnancy and lactation. Their milk production drains mineral reserves rapidly. Males need massive mineral input to grow and maintain their heavy, curved horns. Bone density depends on calcium stability. Without regular access, reproduction weakens. Offspring survival drops. Skeletal stress increases. So the climb is not reckless. It is biochemical urgency written into their biology. They are not scaling a 90-degree wall for adventure. They are correcting a mineral imbalance that the valley cannot fix. But here is the deeper layer. Not every goat species does this, which means this behavior was not accidental. Something selected for it, and that something was pressure. Evolution does not reward bravery. It rewards advantage. Thousands of years ago, goats that dared to access vertical mineral cliffs gained something others could not. Better bone density, stronger offspring, faster muscle response, higher reproductive success. Those individuals survived more often, and their genes spread. Over generations, traits that made climbing a 90-degree wall slightly less deadly became amplified. Hooves with deeper friction pads, ankles with greater rotational flexibility, stronger stabilizing muscles in the shoulders and hips, enhanced oxygen efficiency at altitude, small improvements, compounded over thousands of years. Gradually, the vertical limestone wall stopped being just danger. It became an opportunity. Then it became territory. Predators hesitate there. Wolves cannot climb it. Lynx struggle. Even golden eagles must calculate their attack angles carefully. Competitors avoid it entirely. Few species can safely operate on a near-vertical limestone face at 13,000 feet, which means the cliff becomes private access, and that changes everything. Because now the 90-degree wall is no longer just a survival gamble. It is a filter. Only those engineered for friction, balance, and oxygen efficiency pass through it. The ibex is not defying gravity. It is exploiting a niche shaped by gravity. Friction maximized, torque minimized, balance corrected in milliseconds, oxygen extracted efficiently in thin air. But here's what makes it even more remarkable. Their muscles are packed with slow-twitch fibers designed for endurance. Their tendons store elastic energy during micro-adjustments. Their pupils remain horizontally aligned even on steep inclines, stabilizing visual perception. So, while the wall looks vertical to us, their body is constantly recalibrating to it. Every second, every step, every centimeter upward on a 90-degree surface. And almost nobody notices that. Every system in their body supports one outcome: access what others cannot. And once you understand that, the illusion disappears. The 90-degree wall is not impossible. It is selective. It filters out everything that is not optimized. They are not fearless. They are refined by pressure. What looks like a death trap to us is, to them, a mineral bank suspended in the sky. But here is the final realization. If the valley provided everything they needed, they would never climb. If sodium were abundant below, if predators could follow them safely above, If gravity punished them more than it rewarded them, this behavior would disappear. The wall exists because the imbalance exists, and that imbalance created specialists. So they are not conquering the mountain, they are responding to it, not to dominate gravity, but to work with it better than almost any land animal on Earth. And that is why they climb. Not to prove something, not to impress us, but because on a 90-degree vertical wall, in thin air, where most animals would fall within seconds, they found an advantage, and evolution protected it. If you're fascinated by how animals evolve extreme biological systems, to master environments humans struggle to survive in, then you need to watch the next video that pops after this. Because sometimes survival is not about avoiding danger. It's about adapting so precisely that danger becomes territory. And once you see that pattern, you start noticing it everywhere in nature. Gravity doesn't change, but the organisms that learn to work with it do. And these goats just happen to have mastered the vertical world. Make sure to subscribe for more.